3 days ago, everything I thought I knew about my fiancée, Autumn, shattered in an instant. We'd been together for 4 years, building a life that I believed was rooted in love, trust, and a shared future. Our wedding, an extravagant $195,000 affair, was just 3 weeks away. The invitations were being addressed, final payments were scheduled, and every last detail had been meticulously planned. I was ready to marry the woman I loved. Or at least, the woman I thought I knew. That night, Autumn left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower. No big deal, it happened all the time. My phone was dead, so I grabbed hers to order our usual Friday night Thai food. And then I saw them. A string of notifications from Elijah, her ex, the one she swore was just a friend. Normally, I'm not the kind to snoop, but something about the preview made my stomach drop. After the wedding, we can finally. I felt sick. My hands were cold, my heart pounding in my chest. I hesitated for only a second before unlocking her phone and opening the full conversation. And there it was, months' worth of messages that ripped my world apart. Autumn, the woman I was about to marry, the woman I built a home with, was using me. She was just waiting to get through the wedding, so my name would be on the house paperwork. We were set to refinance right after the honeymoon, and she was counting on that. Worse, she and Elijah had already mapped out how to exploit loopholes in the prenup I had insisted on. They had plans that didn't include me, except as the fool funding her new life. The messages were explicit, cruel. She mocked me for paying for the lavish wedding she had always dreamed of, laughed about how easily she had manipulated me, and reassured Elijah that I was too busy with work to notice their ongoing affair. She was already planning their future together while I was sitting across from her, going over floral arrangements and seating charts. I sat there for nearly an hour, scrolling through message after message, each one worse than the last. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely breathe. The sound of the shower turning off barely registered until she walked in, casually asking if I'd ordered the food yet. Somehow, I managed to keep my voice steady, handing her phone back with a smile and a simple. The app was being glitchy, so I used my laptop. That night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully, curled up against me. For years of my life wasted. Every moment I had cherished, every plan we had made, every dream we had shared, it had all been a lie. The proposal at her family's lakeside cabin, the excitement of buying our first home together, the whispered conversations about baby names, none of it was real. She was just biding her time. By morning, I knew I couldn't just walk away. That would be too easy for her. I called my best friend, Heath, who worked in IT, and had him come over while Autumn was out at brunch with her bridesmaids. He helped me back up every last message, screenshotting everything and storing it securely. His face as he read through them was pure disgust. I also called my brother, Alan, a paralegal, who immediately started working on the legal side of things. Thank God we hadn't refinanced the house yet. I still had a way out. I also started looking into which wedding deposits I could recover. The numbers were staggering. $21,000 non-refundable venue deposit. $4,500 for the photographer and videographer. $3,200 for the DJ and lighting. $7,800 for her designer dress and alterations. $9,000 catering deposit. $2,500 for flowers. $1,700 for invitations and other stationery. Plus tens of thousands more in miscellaneous deposits, travel costs, and the looming $142,000 balance due on the wedding day. Canceling outright would mean eating most of the losses. But that wasn't an option. She didn't deserve a clean break. She deserved to watch everything crumble in front of her. For the past 2 weeks, I've played my part perfectly. Smiling, planning, pretending like nothing was wrong. We spent 7 hours addressing invitations together, her complaining about hand cramps while I nearly laughed at the irony. She had no idea that every one of those invites was for a wedding that would never happen. But the best part, the moment she arrives at the altar, in front of all our friends, family, and every person she's ever tried to impress, she'll be handed an envelope. An envelope containing every single message, every detail of her betrayal, every receipt of her deception. She will be exposed in the most humiliating way possible, left standing there in her overpriced dress, her perfect Instagram-worthy wedding crumbling around her. She kissed me goodbye this morning, smiling as she whispered, 3 more weeks until I'm Mrs. my last name. That smile used to make my heart race. Now, it just makes me want to laugh. The taste of blood lingered in my mouth, a reminder of how hard I had been clenching my jaw. For those wondering why I didn't confront her the moment I uncovered the truth, there were two reasons. First, revenge is best served cold, especially in front of 178 witnesses. And second, I needed time to protect myself financially. The satisfaction of watching her world implode tomorrow? That was just a bonus. Since my last post, everything has been set in motion. I met with my bank privately, ensuring she wouldn't be able to access my accounts. The banker's face when I explained the situation was priceless, half disbelief, half admiration. He helped me open a separate account, one she knew nothing about. I transferred almost everything there, leaving just enough for regular bills so she wouldn't suspect a thing. Heath, my ever-reliable best friend, has been an MVP throughout this. He managed to recover even more damning messages between Autumn and Elijah. The worst? A voice memo where she admitted, in her own words, that she had never been attracted to me but thought I'd make a great provider. I've been listening to it on repeat during my commute, reinforcing exactly why I'm doing this. Alan, my brother, discovered a critical clause in our house paperwork, one that might allow me to reclaim my down payment since refinancing hadn't been completed yet. Even better, he found that the prenup actually worked against her if infidelity was proven before marriage, a detail her so-called genius lawyer had completely overlooked. The hardest part has been keeping up the act. Every morning, I wake up beside her, feeling like I'm trapped in some twisted Black Mirror episode. She does little things, making my coffee just the way I like it, rubbing my shoulders absent-mindedly. And for a fleeting second, I almost forget. Then it all crashes back down, and I remember exactly who she is. Last weekend, our bachelor and bachelorette parties took place. My friends whisked me away to a cabin by the lake. Heath's idea, knowing I needed to vent without Autumn possibly overhearing. I got absolutely wasted. Woke up the next morning with "dodged a bullet" scrawled across my chest in Sharpie. Alan's handiwork, no doubt. Meanwhile, Autumn and her bridesmaids were in Vegas, claiming they had just danced until 5 a.m. But Lydia, one of her bridesmaids, had other stories to tell, specifically through her Instagram. There they were poolside, surrounded by guys, looking anything but innocent. Another set of screenshots found their way into my envelope. That envelope. My masterpiece. It's finally complete, 26 pages long, every text, every transaction, every lie highlighted for easy reading. Screenshots of her secret Venmo payments to Elijah, photos from her Vegas escapades, the voice memo transcribed in brutal detail. A carefully written letter explaining everything to our guests. And perhaps the most satisfying page of all, proof that I had already canceled our honeymoon and secured a partial refund. She has no idea. There have been close calls. Tuesday night, she borrowed my laptop, and my heart nearly stopped. Thankfully, I'd been using incognito mode for all my revenge planning. Yesterday, she picked up my phone to take a picture, and I lunged for it like a lunatic. I had to play it off as being worried about work, but in reality, my recently deleted folder was still filled with incriminating screenshots. The wedding vendors, surprisingly, have been accommodating. The venue manager, who has apparently seen her fair share of betrayal stories, helped me minimize the financial damage. The caterer agreed to donate the food to a local shelter once the event ends, abruptly. Tonight, we had our rehearsal dinner. I stood next to Autumn at the head table, nodding and smiling as our families made toasts about our perfect match and our bright future. Her father even teared up, talking about giving his little girl away to a man who could provide for her. The irony was so thick I could barely swallow my steak. After dinner, Autumn pulled me aside, her eyes full of something that might have once stirred my heart. She whispered that she had a special surprise planned for our wedding night and couldn't wait to start our life together. Then her phone buzzed. I saw the flash of panic in her eyes before she quickly turned away to check it. That was all the confirmation I needed. Elijah, everything is set for tomorrow. Alan has positioned friends strategically throughout the venue, their phones ready to capture the moment. The officiant has been briefed. My cousin, who has always had my back, knows exactly when to hand over the envelope. Autumn's sister, Bonnie, will be sitting front row. She has always been decent to me, and I feel a twinge of guilt that she has to witness this, but she deserves to know the truth about her sister. As I stepped out of the shower tonight, I glanced at Autumn sleeping peacefully, her wedding dress hanging in the closet. The sight of it makes me sick now. She's probably dreaming about the beach house my money was supposed to buy her. Tomorrow, at 3 p.m., that dream ends. Even with all the anger, there's a hollow space in my chest. For years gone. The future I had meticulously planned, erased. After tomorrow, I'll have to rebuild from the ground up. But at least I'll be free. My tux is pressed. The rings sit on my nightstand. Hers will be returned. Mine. I'll keep it as a reminder to never be this blind again. The envelope is safe in Alan's hands. There's nothing left to do now but try to sleep, though I doubt I'll manage much. Instead of spending my last night as a bachelor beside my fiancé, I'm heading to Heath's place. I left a note saying I'm following the tradition of not seeing the bride before the wedding. The truth? I just can't stomach another night pretending. As I pack a small overnight bag, she stirs in her sleep and mumbles something about loving me. The audacity is almost impressive. Tomorrow, everything changes. For both of us. The air was thick with anticipation, though I felt none of it. I stood at the altar, my cousin beside me, officiating the ceremony with a practiced calm. Every so often, he would glance my way, giving me a knowing look as his hand briefly patted the envelope tucked into his jacket pocket. The envelope that would soon shatter the illusion of this perfect day. The music changed, signaling the arrival of the bridesmaids. One by one, they made their way down the aisle, their dresses swaying with each careful step. Then came Bonnie, Autumn's sister. Unlike the others, she looked straight at me as she passed, her gaze lingering just a second too long. A flicker of hesitation crossed my mind. Had Autumn confided in her? Did she suspect something? But before I could dwell on it, the opening notes of the bridal march filled the air, and everyone rose to their feet. There she was. Autumn glided forward, radiant in her meticulously altered $7,000 dress, her makeup flawless, her smile picture-perfect. Her father walked beside her, beaming with pride, his hand firm on her arm as if guiding her toward the happiest day of her life. If I hadn't known better, I might have believed it myself. But as she drew closer, I saw it. The way her eyes darted across my face, searching for signs of nerves, of love, of anything at all. What she found instead was cold, unwavering determination. She reached the altar. Her father placed her hand in mine, her fingers ice-cold despite the warm afternoon sun. My cousin began speaking about love, about commitment, about the sacred bond we were about to enter. I didn't hear a word. My attention was fixed on Autumn, on the tiny twitches in her expression, the way her gaze flickered ever so often to the third row, where Elijah sat. Her lips parted slightly, a subtle tremor betraying the unease she was desperately trying to mask. She knew something was wrong, she could feel it, but she had no idea what was coming. Then the moment arrived. My cousin's voice cut through the ceremony, steady but firm. Before we continue with the vows, there's something that needs to be addressed. Autumn's brows knit together in confusion as he reached into his jacket and pulled out the envelope. He handed it to her, and she turned to me, eyes questioning. "What is this?" she asked, her voice a whisper, an attempt to keep the moment from spiraling. I simply nodded. "Open it." The transformation was slow but unmistakable. The color drained from her face, like ink seeping out of a watercolor painting. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the pages, her breathing becoming shallow. Every line, every highlighted message, every transaction was there, laid bare for her to see. When she reached the transcription of the voice memo, the one where she openly admitted she was never attracted to me, only to my financial security, her lips parted in silent horror. A murmur spread through the crowd, whispers growing louder as the weight of the situation sank in. Autumn's frantic eyes darted from the pages to me, then to Elijah, then back again. The realization hit her in real time. I reached for the microphone, my voice calm, controlled. "I won't be getting married today," I announced, my words slicing through the stunned silence. "I recently discovered that my fiancée has been planning to use me for financial gain while maintaining a relationship with her ex, who, by the way, is sitting among us right now." Gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman audibly muttered, "Oh my God." "But," I continued, "since all of this has already been paid for, I invite you all to stay, enjoy the food, the drinks, the music, just not the wedding." For a brief, charged moment, there was absolute silence. Then the room erupted. Autumn's face crumpled as she clutched at my arm, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "Please," she sobbed. "It's not what it looks like." I stepped back, shaking my head, then pointed to a specific page in the envelope, page 16. "Really?" I asked, my voice devoid of warmth. "Because right here, in your own words, you said, just need to get through this wedding so his name is on the house." A strangled sound left her throat, but before she could respond, her mother stood abruptly, her face red with fury. "How dare you humiliate my daughter like this?" she shouted, her voice shaking. And then the unexpected happened. Bonnie, her own sister, rose from her seat. "Sit down, Mom," she snapped. "And shut up." The room fell into stunned silence once more. Bonnie walked over, took the papers from Autumn's trembling hands, and skimmed through them. As she read, her expression darkened, then settled into something almost like disappointment. With a quiet shake of her head, she returned to her seat without another word. That was my cue. I handed the microphone back to my cousin, nodded toward my groomsmen, and turned to leave. Behind me, the chaos unfolded. Autumn's wails echoed through the venue. Elijah, realizing the spotlight had landed on him, tried to slip out unnoticed. The guests were a mixture of horror and morbid fascination, some flipping through the scattered pages, others whispering animatedly. As I stepped outside, I inhaled deeply, the first full breath I'd taken in weeks. Alan was waiting with my car, door open and ready. As I moved toward it, I heard heavy footsteps behind me. Turning, I found myself face to face with Autumn's father. I braced myself for an outburst, but instead he simply asked, his voice weary, "Is it true?" I nodded. His shoulders sagged. A long, tired sigh left him. "I'm sorry," he said and walked away. No anger, no accusations. Just the quiet defeat of a man realizing his daughter was not who he thought she was. The aftermath was chaos. My phone was bombarded for the next 48 hours. Autumn tried to contact me through every possible platform, even creating new accounts to bypass my blocks. Her latest tactic? Threats, claims that she'd tell everyone what I did to her if I didn't talk to her. But what could she possibly say that I hadn't already revealed myself? Some highlights from the fallout. Heath sent me videos of the guests' reactions. Absolute gold. The venue manager called it the most dramatic wedding disaster she had seen in 15 years. Autumn and Elijah had a full-blown screaming match in the parking lot. Turns out, he had been playing her too. He was secretly dating Lydia, one of her own bridesmaids. The irony: around 60% of the guests decided to stay and party. Free booze is free booze, after all. Autumn's mother spun a story that I had faked the whole thing because I got cold feet. A few mutual friends reached out, saying they'd always felt something was off about our relationship, but never wanted to interfere. As for me, I'm staying at Heath's place for now, meeting with lawyers next week about the house situation. Lost about $135,000 in non-refundable deposits, but considering what I almost lost, I count it as a win. The hardest part? The quiet moments. Realizing that 4 years of my life were built on a lie. Wondering what, if anything, was ever real. But then I remember her face when she opened that envelope, and I know, without a doubt, I made the right call. To everyone who followed this, your support kept me strong when I wanted to break down and confront her early. Special thanks to those whose advice shaped my final plan. You know who you are. And for those asking, yes, the locks on the house have already been changed.